It's Wizards versus Lesbians, a podcast for your ears. Hello and welcome to Wizards versus Lesbians. My name is Isaac.
I'm Alexis.
And today we are discussing two novellas, Radcliffe Hall by Miyuki Jane Pickard, which is available on the internet via Uncanny Magazine, and But Not Too Bold by Hache Pueyo, and forgive me if I'm not pronouncing that correctly, with which is not available for free, but can be found in a new English translation. Before we get started today, due to recent job change on my part and various scheduling and health issues, we've been having trouble finding time to record, which means that we're recording this one at a very early hour. And so if we're a little bit more disjointed than usual, that is why things may be a bit all over the place. And it would be nice to, if I think we may be able to get away without missing an episode, because we haven't missed an update so far over the last 120 plus, which I'm quite proud of. Episodes. But circumstances being what they are. But but regardless, if we're a little
Bear with us if we sound like we just woke up, because we kind of just woke up.
We did. We're a little bit loopy at the moment, but I think we can still give these their due.
Yes. So
I'd like to start with Radcliffe Hall today, because it is the more familiar to me in terms of its meaning and intent. So
why don't you do the plot summary of this one?
All right. So Tomoe is a Japanese student who has come to America to a distinguished university, which I believe is not meant to be mapped onto anyone specifically, but is probably sort of one of the Seven Sisters, or at least adjacent to that, a New England liberal arts college. We are in the interwar period, I would say. It's not specified, but we're probably...
Yes, it is. We know it's specified. She gives us the particular Meiji year, even.
Ah, yes. And what would that be? Thank you.
Let me pull it up. It's in the opening. Yes. In the autumn of Meiji year 41, or 1908 by European reckoning, I was invited to enroll at Norcross College.
There we go. So not interwar, pre-war, but early 20th century regardless.
Interwar for Japan.
Interwar for Japan, that is true. Although, it's there's a lot of interwar. Really, what is not interwar in human history? But that's another story. Anyway, so she goes to this college and is put in a dorm called Radcliffe Hall, which she doesn't know is, in our world, named after a famous lesbian, but we do. And there she meets some cool students, a cool butch student named George, and a cool European lesbian named Antoinette. And she also meets some popular kids who are all part of this group of spiritualists / racists. And it turns out that Radcliffe Hall is haunted by some sort of historical force, and so she has to solve a mystery and contend with the haunting and contend with the cool kids and contend
a historical force, and also just there's also just a straight up ghost.
And a straight up ghost. I mean, that's kind of a spoiler, but
it's not much of a spoiler.
Yeah.
It's established, the ghost girl is established pretty early.
Also, she has to contend with being Japanese and wondering why she ever came to this place in the first place, and that is sort of the content of the novella. Yep. Are there wizards in this one?
Oh yeah. I mean, they're spiritualists, but whatever. They're wizards.
Yeah, it's a little bit more of a stretch than usual, perhaps, but sure. And
they're doing magic.
They are, in fact, doing magic.
They are representatives of the power elite.
The phrase "power elite" was an answer on a crossword that Alexis and I did many years ago, and we were annoyed about it at the time because we never heard anyone say those words in that particular order. Later we learned it's the title of a 1956 book by the sociologist C. Wright Mills, a book which is not much in discussion 70 years later because its contention that America is run by the rich and connected now feels like pointing out that water is wet.
they're representatives of the institutionalized power and are doing magic. I suppose the fact that they're women complicates this, but part of this is the story by which elite women uphold white supremacy. So like, they're wizards.
There is that, and in fact, the story could be called "The Way Elite Women Uphold White Supremacy." And the other question that I ask at this point is, are there lesbians? To which the answer is yes, definitely. There's a lesbian named George, and you can't beat that.
There are at least 4 extremely lesbians. So
yes, and the wizards and the lesbians are in conflict. Why should you read this one? I actually just enjoyed it. It was a pretty good little creepy boarding house story. It had some nice moments. The pacing was pretty good. I didn't feel like there was too much here that was sort of, life-changing, but it's well constructed and does what it does quite well, I think. Yeah, solid is the word that I would use.
Solid, yes. A much more compact way of saying what I was saying.
It did bring a couple of things to the table that I don't think I've encountered in the books that we've done so far. Largely just because I think this is the first one of these, and by these I mean sort of a character from a subaltern, or unprivileged class, race, caste reckoning with this whole thing
from a marginalized group.
Yes, we haven't done that from the perspective of a Japanese person yet.
Well, actually, this is something the book handles. This is a really interesting historical moment for Japanese people in the U.S. where they are where like the West is trying to figure out just how
white they are.
Yeah, just how white they are, and this is. And I think that the book does a very good job of capturing that in a way that that shows that it does. I mean, we can get into the ways in which it's sort of glossing over what is actually going on in Japan and what Japan is doing to all of its neighbors, but like this isn't really the point of the book. And it does note that the reason why Tomoe is being sort of considered for an honorary white girl card is because because of what Japan has been doing to all of its neighbors.
Yeah, exactly. No, I wouldn't even say that it's not the point of the story. Honestly, I think it does acknowledge that. I mean,
well, it acknowledges the victories of the Russo-Japanese War more than But this is also, I guess, a moment in time before the Japanese imperial machine has really taken off. So
yeah, we can get more into this, but regardless, it's not something that I've seen addressed in the Wizlas context so far, so that makes it interesting to me.
Yeah.
Why should you not read it?
Oh, I actually had also for why you should read it is that I thought the voice was pretty engaging.
Yeah,
sure. Like the good. It's I thought like the characterization was pretty good, especially for something that's short enough that some of the characters do kind of have to be types. So, why shouldn't you read it? I don't know. I suppose, other than some content warnings,
it's. I would say maybe the prose is a little bit purple at times, and not necessarily in a fun way. And
though I think that's appropriate for the genre.
Definitely,
I think if you're reading haunted lesbian girls' boarding school story, I would be disappointed if the prose weren't a little bit purple at times, honestly. I
suppose that's true. And also, there is no point at which it does not do the thing that you're expecting it to do. I guess that's the other thing.
I guess why shouldn't you read this book is there's nothing, this isn't going to change your understanding of the genre or anything. It does what it does quite well.
Right.
And it's doing, multiple things. But
this is all very much played with a straight bat.
Yep.
Content warnings, racism, anti-Semitism,
discussions of suicide. There's murder. There's mind control. There's non-consensual drugging. There's homophobia.
Yeah.
Actually, there's discussions of suicide, both actual and murder misunderstood as suicide.
Yeah, I think that covers it.
Yep.
Cool. Let us move on to the spoiler zone, and I'll put a little timestamp in here for if you want to skip to our discussion of the next book as well.
Good idea.
Spoiler zone. The second half starts at
33 minutes and 45 seconds.
I like that when they are discussing the group costumes from the last Halloween, that George and Antoinette and the dead girl went as
Julia
went as Orpheus, Eurydice, and Hades last Halloween, which I think was both cute, and it also sort of raises the possibility that there's something sinister about George, which kind of teases there being a twist, which of course doesn't arrive because that would not work at all with the theme that they're trying to establish. But I like the various sort of, various traditions of leading people back from the underworld.
Actually, there's some really nice symbolism there too, which is that, that's 3, right? So where's your missing fourth? Your missing fourth is Persephone. The point of Persephone is that she's caught between 2 worlds. And the point, and, part of Tomoe's issue is that she doesn't, she isn't quite Japanese enough, and she's definitely not American.
Oh, yes, that's very good. We do end up with Tomoe as a sort of Persephone figure, I guess. And so that means that the big question that the book raises is how did we get here? Why did we want to go to this school in the first place? Can we remember why we wanted to go to this school in the first place? What are we meant to get out of it? Which is a sort of goes hand in hand with the larger question, which is how did Japan end up on the same side of World War II as a white supremacist nation? My favorite thing that the story does is that it lets Tomoe continue to be pulled back into the rhythms of the school.
Yeah.
Even after it's been very clearly established that everything is fucked up and that the dorm room is haunted and that, this is not a good situation to be in, you still have to go to class and you still have to get a good grade, right?
Yeah.
In a pat way, what this book is saying is how did we end up here? Well, we were too busy catching up with our homework. We were behind schedule. We needed to, we were running with our toast in our mouth to catch up to the rest of the world. The black ships arrived and we forgot to study. And so that's how we ended up getting a little bit carried away.
I think that last bit might be part of a stretch. I mean, part of this is because Tomoe is herself. I mean, one of the things that causes her to experience emotions is that she didn't grow up just in Japan.
Yes.
She's Western educated, not American, I think, but British.
How many members of the Japanese imperial family went to Oxford? Well, it's 5. I'm surprised. And the first one went in 1920, just a little bit after this book was set. You bet. The Academy is the legitimation machine. It's always been a part of the imperial dream. And what do you give away when you go to Oxford?
When she goes back to Japan, everyone's like, okay, but your kanji aren't good enough and all of your little mannerisms aren't quite right. But of course, when she goes anywhere else, she's Japanese. And I think that's, and so part of this is that she's, when she's at Radcliffe Hall, suddenly she's expected to stand in for the nation of Japan, including getting credit for, their victory over the Slavic peoples and increasing dominance over territories such as Formosa, Manchuria, and Korea. I have pulled this up from the book. It's a little bit of a blunt instrument, making sure that these themes come across. But then again, that fits the character.
Right, exactly. Now, this story does a very good job of making sure that people who aren't familiar with the cultural context get a crash course in, what's going on.
Yeah, but it does a fairly good job. I think this one strikes a pretty good balance of period appropriate without, while still reading like a modern piece.
It's very earnest.
Yeah.
But I think it's well pulled off.
Yeah, I would agree.
Circumstances.
But the thing is that, you know, for Tomoe, part of what she's having to navigate isn't sort of how do we catch up, but which way is she gonna go? You know, she can't like just pick one route. She can't just be Western or just be Japanese, but she can sort of figure out, you know, which girls is she going to hang out with? Is she going to even try to stay to get this Western education? And especially because like Japan isn't exactly offering her everything she wants either.
Yeah, so no, there's a third path that is being made available to her, which is
lesbianism.
Precisely. But we are definitely made to see that that's not an easy or uncomplicated path to take either.
Right.
I mean, that comes down right to the title of the story. Speaking of, like, you know, things that you drop and they hit the floor with a clang. Because Radcliffe Hall, in addition to being one of the, you know, as we found out in
Sappho's Bar and Grill.
Sappho's Bar and Grill, thank you very much. Names are the thing that don't come to me at this hour. As we found out in Sappho's Bar and Grill, Radcliffe Hall was a huge anti-Semite. And props to the story for noting the degree to which anti-Semitism is at the core of a lot of this sort of spiritualist and / you know, cultural purity stuff that is going on at this point.
As well as elite universities at this point.
Exactly. And so, you know, the story does not want being gay to be an out. And that's, you know, partially in the, you know, in that sort of association with the title, which does not actually appear in the text. It's just like something for those who know to enjoy, but also in that the sort of the primary spiritual injury / like fount of guilt that makes Tomoe vulnerable to all of this it comes from her sexuality, or comes from her like the difficult history of navigating how she's going to treat the other women in her life who she is in love with.
Yes, and specifically the suicide of her girlfriend.
Yes.
Back in Japan.
Exactly. And part of this is then like her reckoning with when she finds out that George, who she has a crush on, has gotten herself a fiancé to get her parents off her back. Her reaction to that, you know, is nearly derails the whole thing, because it makes her, you know, angry at her friend at a moment where she really needs all of the allies that she can get.
Yes.
So we're bringing up the idea of, like, you know, how do we, there are different ways of navigating the third way of being a lesbian as well. You know, one of them leads to Sappho's Bar and Grill. If we are going to disown people for not getting their gold star, and then there is the, you know, the way of human compassion, which I think is probably the thing that we're landing on at the end here is the actual way to go. But it is interesting that under the circumstances we are, you know, particularly under the historical circumstances, that the ability to ask forgiveness from the dead, and to remember the dead seems to be at the core of this thing, particularly given the difficulties that Japan has historically had with acknowledging the dead, after the aftermath of all the stuff that this story is gesturing to.
Certainly acknowledging, you know, certainly acknowledging it in textbooks.
I think I may have some false nostalgia for a time when America wasn't happy to do exactly the same thing with our history books. But maybe that was an anomaly, or just the community I was in. Texas has always called the shots, so to speak, when it comes to schools. Not acknowledging their own dead. They're really great at acknowledging their own dead. But
there's an entire shrine specifically for war dead. And actually, again, I mean, well, this is about white supremacism and is only sort of touches on Japanese fascism. But still, I mean, there is also a point of we have to acknowledge our own dead and all the terrible things they did. I mean, that's the ghost that they summon is the white supremacist founder of the dorm or of the college. So, and of the spiritualist society. So, like it's not just we have to acknowledge the dead who we love. It's also some of our dead forebears were terrible people, and we have to reckon with that. Mm-hmm. And if we do not, they will eat us.
Yes. No, remembering is a big part of the deal here. What did you think about Tomoe's like spiritual practice and the way that it's both used by her in the course of like navigating this cultural experience that she is having and the threat to her life, and also the way that it is exoticized and like set up as a way to sort of manipulate or suborn her by the spiritualists?
I thought it worked well. I mean, I thought that I liked the way in which she's, not. I liked the way in which she's trying to do these family rituals, but she doesn't actually know them that clearly. Because, again, she's sort of grown up all over the place. And so she's reaching for them as a comfort. But she's also like writing to her aunt being like, okay, but how do I actually do this stuff? And that it's clear that it's not even, she's doing it more as a connection to the parts of her family, that she really misses. And then because she necessarily believes that it by itself is going to counteract the ghosts. She's not applying, she isn't like, okay, well, in Japan, we have these spiritual practices and these can be used as tools against the ghosts. It's a very natural sort of, okay, well, these are my family rituals and I'm turning to them for comfort and for, sort of emotional protection. And the degree to which it offers spiritual protection is somewhat left ambiguous.
This is true. And at the same time, Elizabeth and her coterie are saying, because you have these spiritual practices, and in fact, but really because you are the race that you are, your belief in the supernatural as a sort of a baseline, we assume this about you because of the color of your skin, is going to make you easier to hypnotize, basically.
Right, but also, these are things that they can use, like. I enjoy that it does also show the way how like just incredibly Orientalist spiritualism is. Mm-hmm. And so, there's this whole sort of, well, we think you might be white enough to join us. And we also think that you're exotic enough that, you might be able to give us some new fun toys to play with.
Yes, definitely. We're going to be covering Onisama A for our anime episode, 125th, which is coming up. And I was delighted to see the sorority showing up here.
Yes,
it's a never-ending sort of evergreen source of, I guess. Conflict in fiction in general, but in lesbian, fiction specifically, the group of elite women who are up to something nasty behind the scenes. And in this case, that something nasty that they're doing is like, textually the recapitulation of white supremacy and all of this. I appreciated the like. From 1908, the whole the Ku Klux Klan didn't go far enough.
Yes,
which is historically accurate.
Accurate that a racist in 1908 would be saying that, I hasten to clarify.
It's very good just how like all of the stuff is just textually lying there in the historical record, and the story doesn't bend over backwards to get it in there. But like, since Elizabeth just loves monologuing. And putting forth her worldview, there's just a fine field of stuff to pull from.
Yeah. Do we want to talk a little bit more about our lesbians?
Yeah, they do. They are kind of just archetypes for the most part. And the reveal that they're all in some way mixed race, again, good, again, historically accurate.
Well, except George, sort of. I mean, George is Irish, is part Irish, and
Yeah, no, that counts in this period of time.
It does in this period of time. But you'll notice that she's the one who's by far the most secure.
Yes,
because this is a period of time where where the Irish have, especially intermarried nouveau riche Irish, have just managed to cross over into whiteness and like that. This is why her mom is so desperate for her to like make friends with Elizabeth and get invited to all the right parties.
Yeah,
because they've just achieved whiteness, which I think again makes sort of like George and Tomoe, good foils for each other, because you have the person who has who's just achieved whiteness, and the person who almost whose ethnicity almost achieves whiteness, and then doesn't.
Yes. It reminded me of Lote. Actually, it reminded me of Lote on two levels. One of which was like, the sort of varying distance between the nonsense that is the heart of what this particular academy is doing, based on like how white you are, but also in the feeling that the author of the story clearly loves the fashions and the style of this period, and is interrogating the bejesus out of that feeling. And is like, man, how do I reconcile how cool I think this is with what was actually happening at the time?
Yeah. I mean, also, yes, this Lote and Bunny make sort of an interesting trilogy where you have because, this definitely also has that claustrophobic mean girl cult and an elite New England university.
All of these stories sort of, it's like, seeing paint flicked from the same sort of cultural, reactions and moments, and illuminating different parts of the whole. That simile does not make any sense. It is early on. Something about blind men and elephants, potentially, but as through a glass darkly. The same ideas are filtered in slightly different ways through very different kinds of lived experiences, and we get interesting shadows that are cast by those different angles of light. How's that? Does that work?
I was going to suggest meals, but we can taste all the different spices.
Fair enough. I'm just not hungry this morning, I guess. That's the issue.
So let's talk. So speaking about the lesbians and lesbianism as our third path, at the very end, George breaks off her engagement to William, who is kind of a hilarious character. Like, he shows up several times. Poor William. He's so incredibly bland and good-natured, and Tomoe is so mad at him and hates him so much. And it's like, it's very funny.
Yes.
I do understand why she feels this betrayed, but of all the people to be this mad about, so that's great.
I'm just here fulfilling what I understand to be my cultural role. I don't understand why all of these women are mad at me.
Right, exactly. Particularly, I don't know, I kind of get the impression that he might be gay himself, and that, George was thinking of a lavender marriage, but it doesn't matter. Tomoe gets so mad about it that George decides to break off the engagement after all. And even if this means that she can't go to medical school. It is an interesting choice to make, because so much of this up until then has been like really rooted in the period and all the compromises that people had to make in the period. And then this is sort of a bit of a departure.
I mean, it's a happy ending. Like, I would not have expected anything different at that point in the story. I mean, in large part because, like, you have to, her not going to medical school is in part like, we've discovered that the academy is bullshit. We're making the choice to leave the academy. And
well, she's still going to try to go to medical school.
yes, but like going right back in at that point would be a sort of a weird taste, I would say.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because we've just discovered, like, what is at the root of all of these, like, exclusionary academic institutions. And and we're making the conscious decision that we're going to approach it as outsiders and not as candidates for insider status from here on. And that does require sacrifices, which presumably people take even took at the time.
Yeah, no, that's true.
The sort of, dilemma that one is presented with in narratives like this, where it's like, well, if you want security and if you want success, then you are in fact going to have to give up on your truth because of the historical context. I think that even historically, there will be many people who are like, well, actually, I want my truth instead of the security or even the promise of security that could be taken away from me at any moment because of who I am. So
yeah, no, it's a good point. It's just, I do, it's like, well, I do hope that their parents come around for their sake, because otherwise it's going to really suck to be, they don't really have, there's not really a safe place for them in this particular society.
No. Well, there's money at least. At least
that's
for George.
This is why I hope their parents come around, because if George gets disinherited, it's going to really suck.
Yes.
But yeah, no, I think I do think that, okay, well, we're going to live our truth now. We'll figure it out somehow. It's just, it felt, I guess in some ways the narrative felt a little unreasonably harsh to the people who did make compromises.
I see. Yeah. Well,
because most of them die. Most of them die, and like in reality, most of them did manage to live and often like carve out some happiness and truth just while making compromises.
Being in a position to be able to compromise, to be let in even a little bit, is itself a place of privilege, which is not to say you have to throw your future away in solidarity with the less fortunate. But you might end up here anyway, like me. Because I'm ready to sell out, but nobody's buying. I am ready to sell out, but nobody is buying. Yes, I'm ready to sell out, but nobody is buying my soul.
This narrative is like, it feels like it was written by a young person. It feels like, there's a lot of righteousness here. And it is appreciated, but it is also very much itself in that way.
Yeah, that's fair.
And
That's true. Maybe I'm just old and tired. It was.
Yes, we were both old and tired, but the world keeps moving on, and this story was written 5 years ago, and I feel every one of those 5 years at this moment. But
yeah, that's a good point. That is a good point. Anyway, yeah, I think we're done with this one.
Yeah, I think we are. Let's move on to the next one, which is But Not Too Bold. Next story. Isn't it weird that of the two Japanese protagonists we've had on this podcast, both have been named Tomoe? So since I did the plot for the first one, would you be willing to do the plot for this one?
Sure, but Not Too Bold is a Bluebeard retelling, where except from the point of view of one of the servants in Bluebeard's castle, and also Bluebeard is an ancient eldritch spider goddess.
Well, there you go.
Okay. So Dahlia is a servant who has been suddenly promoted to Keeper of the Keys because her mentor has just been eaten by Anatema, the eldritch spider goddess who, rules over this particular mansion, and gets married every so often and then promptly eats her bride for looking at her because she does not wish to be perceived, but she does wish to be loved, and So, and then over the course of trying to figure out whether or not Dahlia's mentor was justly or unjustly eaten, Dahlia and Anatema fall in love. That's the slightly longer synopsis.
Yeah, I think that covers it very thoroughly. Wizards in this one?
Well, there's an Eldritch Spider Goddess.
Yeah, it's a bit more of a stretch than usual, maybe. But lesbians we do have. The Eldritch Spider Goddess is a lesbian.
Yes.
And Dahlia is bisexual at the very least. So yeah, why should you read this one?
Well, if you really want, first of all, this one definitely is written for the monster fuckers. If you're a monster fucker and you're like, no, I feel like the monsters, tend to be too sexy without being like too conventionally sexy without being monstrous enough, you'll enjoy this.
Yeah, no, I was thinking about it. It's like, is there a term that isn't monster fucking for the genre that this is? And
the academics haven't caught up to it yet. The academics haven't even really caught up to furries yet. The academics are just now starting to write about asexuality. So it's going to be a little while before
Unfortunately, we have to use the brute terminology of the lay people to describe this. And as far as I'm aware, what this is called is like, this is one for the monster fuckers, as you said.
The paradox of Zeno. That's XENO. Is that even though it's the more polite term, it's been entirely pushed out by the more vulgar one.
I guess that's not really a paradox. If that is what you are into, then presumably you're going to enjoy yourself here.
Or, if you want a weird, arachnid horror Bluebeard retelling.
Yeah. No, I mean, this one also genuinely baffled me. And that's not an experience that is that common for me.
This one was really. I also I thought that the setting was really well done, very evocative, kind of horrifyingly so, but very evocative.
Yeah.
The sort of the weird kind of dreamlike mood that it set and moved through worked really well. There's some good moments of dark humor. This one I found sort of baffling but weirdly compelling, even though I'm still not completely sold on any of it really.
Yeah, and it's also quite short. So you're not in there for too long. It's a bit of it's a confection in all sorts of ways. It also features an enormous number of confections and bonbons and little treats and miniatures and that sort of thing. And it itself is one of those. And all of the treats are made of spiders, and that is also what this story is. So it is, if nothing else, extremely consistent. Why shouldn't you read this?
Well, boy, I'm glad that I trained myself out of my arachnophobia a while ago.
Yes. No, don't read this one if you don't like spiders.
There are spiders everywhere. Everybody has their own personal pet tarantula, and also they eat tarantulas. And also, in the case of Dahlia, she fucks a tarantula woman goddess thing.
She's got spiders inside her bed. She's in danger, she's easily wed. The spider's paying for her food and her home. We kind of slid right into the spoiler zone. Content warning, spiders and stuff. No one knows this song, so this is probably enough.
The story is also saying basically, I think the Bluebeard story is hot, and it would be even hotter if the not only is Bluebeard a ancient lesbian spider monster, but also you get to win her over and be the wife that she actually doesn't murder because you're just the better wife, and because you're so good at monster fucking. And in that sense, it's like putting up it against, or sort of comparing it to Radcliffe Hall, just in that there are two stories about an ancient
a very
institution,
claustrophobic institution
being haunted by an ancient woman. The that this one is like really pro the ancient woman. Whereas Radcliffe Hall is being like very scrupulously moral about, no, we need to acknowledge that the ancient woman was bad, actually. Which again, is very, very unusual for our podcast to for a story to take that turn. And you know, I think this one is probably morally unacceptable as a narrative.
I mean, yes, like the happy ending is that she gets to marry the monster who has just been murdering countless women and also did eat her mentor. But like the thing is, I don't feel like this story is meant to be analyzed on moral ground. Like, I do not feel like we're supposed to look at Dahlia and go, oh yes, life goals. I mean, you know, I think that for some readers, you're going to look at Dahlia and go, yes, you know, that's extremely hot. But I don't feel like the story is trying to sell us on. I mean, I guess in some ways it is actually trying to sell us on the sympathy for the mass murderer. And that way it's like a vampire story, because most vampire stories, you know, like it has the same moral failing that every vampire romance has.
Yes, except for the one by Lian Yutan that we did.
Right. Yes, where, you know, she's...
The Wicked and the Willing, that's what it's called.
The Wicked and the Willing. Great book.
Yeah.
Guys, if you haven't read it, you should. But yes, okay, so not every... But like your standard vampire romance involves, but I'm the special one, and now the serial, you know, and just sort of glosses over all the murders. And I actually like that this one doesn't gloss over all the murders. The murders are there. They're kind of horrifying. You feel sorry for these young women. But at the same time, you know, Dahlia is far too invested in A, surviving, and B, getting to fuck the spider goddess.
Yeah. I would say that sort of the disconnect here is that this one is not SFF, really, and it's not horror, really. It's a romance novel. It's a paranormal romance. And it takes its major cues from being a paranormal romance. And this also means that it's not really whiz-les, but it's certainly close enough to be interesting to discuss. It's almost in the Chuck Tingle genre of Amazon creature romances, except it has the courage to make itself genuinely off-putting and weird, and not playing any of it for laughs.
Yeah, I guess actually, and it's and the ways in which it's different, I think, are useful because, you know, for example, in this case, queer desire is the liberating force on sort of a metaphorical level, in that it is the thing, you know, Dahlia's desire for Anathema is what sort of liberates Anathema from being in this trap where, you know, she wants the rewards of being loved without the mortifying ordeal of being known. And, you know, because finally there's somebody who sees exactly how much of a monster she is and can look her in the face and go, yeah, but that's hot, actually. As opposed to, you know, showing up and screaming and getting eaten. And, you know, but in that way that you are getting sort of this liberation thing, but at the same time, Dahlia's queer desire is also very much trapping her into this house where, you know, and this marriage with a spider monster who eats people.
Yes, but we're also sort of construing Dahlia as a person for whom there is no alternative option, and there never was.
Well, sort of. I mean, the thing is that she could just leave. I mean, yes, it would be hard to find a job outside of here, but like, she goes off and interviews people. I mean, you know, there is an outside world. She was raised in this claustrophobic environment, but like, she could leave. She's choosing not, you know, and again, this is where her desire is kind of a trap, because it is what is one of the things that is stopping her from understanding that she could just walk away.
But I think that like, but when she does go out of the manor and into the village, like, she just really doesn't enjoy the experience at all the one time that she gets to do it. Like, I think there's sort of in contrast, like there is that sort of claustrophobic, like we're stuck in this, tiny little haunted mansion feeling, but this is from the perspective of somebody who's like agoraphobic.
Right. Yeah.
And is like, no, actually what I want, A, is to be inside the haunted mansion, and B, web me up in your cocoon, mommy, please.
Right.
And like, it's a expression of sort of libidinal feeling, both in the strictly libidinal sense and in the like, what I want in the world above everything else is this like feeling of safety and security, and being in a environment where all of the rules are known to me. And
yes.
And although much is made of how capricious Anatema is, like, much is also made of how Dahlia is never scared of Anatema.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that Anatema murders everybody, there is this sort of like, it is in fact kind of about the feeling of safety and familiarity that can come with an abusive relationship, and sort of rewrite the, what feels like, home to a person.
Right.
It is in fact quite distressing.
Yeah. I mean, well, the thing is that sort of every Bluebeard story is about almost every. I guess there's the Ursula Vernon one, which is mostly just about how actually respecting people's boundaries can be useful. But the appeal of somebody who understands privacy. But with that, but by and large, every Bluebeard story is about an abusive relationship, and so most of the time it's about the understanding that you'll never be truly safe in the abusive relationship. You have to find out what it is, and then you have to get out. And in this one, it is more about the appeal of that.
Yes.
Though you can argue that, and this again is that this is also sort of the I can fix her story, right? Because she stops eating her staff after Dahlia wins her over. Like, she doesn't eat Lionel even though he betrayed her.
That sort of also makes it interesting, because it's like Anatema is one of the ancient ones. I forget what the actual phrase is, but it doesn't matter too much, given that this is a sort of a. I feel like this one was translated somewhat loosely, and this is a tangent, but the original title is Ben Malmequer, which is again, I don't speak Portuguese and I apologize. So Ben Macaire is a term for like a daisy, and that comes from like Ben Macaire, Mal Macaire, if when you're plucking the petals off, she loves me not kind of situation.
Oh.
Which feels like feels like you could have translated that directly into the English idiom potentially, because
no, I mean they call it this because they want it to be clear that it's a Bluebeard story. Like that, I think that's a reasonable marketing decision to make.
Okay, I mean that's fair enough. But yes, no, the sort of the thrilling capriciousness of the ancient one is sort of on display here. But given that the sort of, I think, the heart of the Bluebeard story and sort of the heart of the story that we were being presented here is aristocracy, essentially, is the sort of like the ancient rich, and their ability to do whatever they want to you at any given moment.
Yes.
It's like, all right, so the idea here is that that sort of like, centuries or millennia of ingrained selfishness, capriciousness can be overcome by the love of a good woman. I guess that's at the heart of a lot of romance stories too,
Yeah, I think you're right that this is, I mean, this is a paranormal romance. It is a paranormal romance for the lesbian monster fuckers out there, and and it's got a lot of the things that your like paranormal vampire romance fantasies have, with the serial killing and all that. And I kind of, I guess I'm fairly positively inclined towards this because at least it's wearing its monstrousness honestly.
Yeah, exactly. No, I was going to say that I think that maybe the value here is that, regardless of how one personally feels about it, and clearly that some people are going to be like, this is hot. There's no, this is hot and I can pretend that like it's not awful.
Right. Like, so a lot of your sort of standard vampire romancy stories, will have, and not just vampires. It's just that the vampire ones are the most obvious because, again, you know, unless you're doing a Twilight thing where it's like, oh no, we just drink cow blood. Usually the love interest is somebody who eats people, who kills and eats people. And and in this case, she also kills and eats people. And it's just made very clear from the beginning that, these are people who are getting killed and eaten. Whereas often, and I think a lot of the stories that are, Vampire the Masquerade-esque, you're not really supposed to care about the people. You're supposed to sort of pretend that the people who are getting eaten don't count.
Mm-hmm.
And in this case, it's obvious that they count. I mean, she creates, or Anathema creates a little dollhouse room for each one of them to, commemorate exactly how much they were definitely a human being that she killed and ate.
Yeah, and Dahlia, like, in her investigation of the, of the potential thieves in the mansion, like, goes through and we're made to see the humanity of them all in turn. These people who are, the servants and are also like, essentially potential livestock, are all given very thorough, both physical and like, personality portraits in miniature, which is a lot of what the sort of the runtime of the brief book is about, and makes us see the individuality in all of them, in a way that we don't even really get with Anatema herself.
Yeah, it's true. She's kind of a cipher throughout.
Yes, who remains an enigma, who's mostly described in her physicality, because that's the point of her.
Right.
And so, yeah, no, I think that it's one of those things that is like both attempting to appeal, in a very straightforward way to a certain kind of libidinousness, but is also very sort of scrupulous about capturing the moral ramifications, and is also very concerned with being with portraiture, as you said, both in the way that the book is presented, in the way that that Anonymous, the idea that Anonymous cares enough is another thing where it's like, I don't know about that.
Yeah.
It's, you can view it as the sort of the collector part of the serial killer, but the way that it's perceived here is, or the way that it's portrayed here, is that Anonymous is in fact, does care on one level, is just like,
oh, I'm not even convinced she cares. I think the collection is a way of showing us, the reader, that these were actual people. But I mean, she is monstrous through and through, and part of that is that she's creating these little dollhouse things, and it's about her victimhood. It is about how tragic it is that she had to kill these people and eat them because they looked at her.
This is true, and also it constitutes a way for her to continue to possess them after death.
Right.
Because of, her reaction when one of these totems or talismans is taken is like, it justifies her murdering somebody else because it.
Well, as it turns out, the person she murders is the thief, but.
Yes, but no, I mean, but like that makes sense in her moral calculus, because
right.
These are still her wives.
Right.
That are part of her collection. Yeah, there's a lot going on in a very small space.
Yeah, it's trying to do a lot of things, and they're all very strange. It was, but if you can stand the fact that there are spiders everywhere, I think it is an interesting reading experience to have. Oh, I will also note actually that something that I think is a nice touch is how, you have this incredible sort of dreamlike yeah, like everything in this house is very surreal and dreamlike. And then briefly Dahlia goes into the outside world and it's very mundane. And then she goes back to the house and it's surreal and dreamlike again. And it's like, oh yes, that's right. These people are just constantly consuming opioids. Like they're subsisting on fried spiders and poppies. Like they're lotus eaters. And of course everything seems magical and dreamlike. Everybody is just completely high all the time on, laudanum.
That is true, particularly Anonima herself, who like drinks it by the barrel full.
Yes.
I kept like, teasing at political commentary, over the course of this, and was like, I don't know enough about Portugal, and B,
or Brazil, possibly, given that the author is Brazilian or partly Brazilian.
I don't know enough about the Lusophone world to tease this out. Put it that way. But it's not willing to let anything get off lightly, despite the fact that we're also just being given a fantasy here.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess in the end that is the thing that both I like about this and also in some ways is how it falls short, is that it is really trying to be both a straightforward, monster fucking story and also like this sort of commentary horror story. And it works you can read it on either level and it works fairly well, but they don't quite mesh, which I think isn't necessarily even a failure. It just is part of what makes the story a little bit baffling.
Yeah, it's in like the bits where those stories intersect are in the opium haze zone.
Right.
But I think that probably covers it. And
yeah.
I think that we've successfully managed to record a podcast. So with any luck,
record a podcast, even though we were both up earlier than usual for Sunday morning.
Indeed. So we'll call it there. And until next time, bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.